Alright, so the runners have started. So the goal of any percent category is to collect as much gold as possible while moving through the level quickly, which is why you can see the runners bouncing off of the corners of these dirt blocks so that they pick up the gold that comes out of them. By the end of this level, they all want to be as close to 300 as possible, and each runner is probably going to take a slightly different route for gold and everything. So in this first checkpoint room, there's actually a bit of a fast strat you can do. Smoggy might go for it. You can just kind of jump and get to the beetle a little earlier. I think everybody went for the safe strat though, which is good. So in Shovel Knight speedruns, the main way you keep your movement speed going is you jump whenever you swing your shovel on the ground. The reason being is that when you swing your shovel, it actually kind of stops you in place for a moment. But if you jump, you can basically cancel the animation and continue moving really quickly, which in the long run with the dirt you'll see put to good use. You can just kind of spam both buttons together and you can dig through the dirt really quickly. Something else to note is that on the ladders in this game, you can jump off of the tops of them, so you don't have to just climb to the top every single time. And there's a little animation that plays when Shovel Knight has approached the ladder, which signifies he's at the right point to jump off of it. At the end of this level, or toward the end, some of the players might go for a new zip setup that was discovered recently. I don't know how comfortable everyone is with it. Looks like Primorix is going for it, which is interesting to me. Smoggy's going for it. Ooh, Smoggy. So essentially what you want to do is that you want to get the bubbles to a certain spot. Primorix got it immediately. This actually saves a handful of seconds from going around the other way. But you just kind of wait for the bubbles to get to a certain point on the screen, and you have to bounce on them near the screen transition. And then what that gets you is it makes you just kind of go into a screen up and to the left from where you are, and then move over to the right, and it just skips a couple of rooms. Then the Black Knight stun lock is actually fairly simple to do. You just have to be really good at your jump cancels, and every time you hit him with the shovel, you then just jump again and keep pushing him into the right corner. This will work on every version of the Black Knight fight, not just the first one. So the next level for every runner will be Pridemore Keep, right after they go to the village briefly. In Pridemore Keep, the only goal is to get through the level and beat the boss and get the gold. The runners all want to acquire basically as much as possible again, but they're going to purchase their first item after this level for 2,500 gold. More on that later. In this first room of Pridemore Keep, the lava is actually on a local cycle, so you have to play through the room perfectly, which isn't difficult. Immediately afterward, as you saw on Primorix's stream, he's first for me, is the Gentle Hop. It was discovered by a guy named Mr. Gentle. Effectively what you do is during the startup of your jump at a screen transition, if you swing your shovel in just like at the transition, it increases your jump height by 1 block. It's only used in that single spot to get up to the platform, just because it's the only spot in the game with an area like that that makes it usable. The rest of this level is incredibly straightforward. They're gonna just hold right for a few rooms here. So I guess I'll talk about some of the routes used for this game. For any percent, there's 3 different routes, only 2 of which are really used a lot. The main route, which I believe all these runners are using, is the Orb route, which means they're going to go to the village after this and purchase the Chaos Sphere. Another route involves getting the Flare Wand, which is slightly faster, and they both have different strats. But the Orb has a few more time saves that kind of, at the moment, we believe, puts it ahead. And then faster than either of those, theoretically, is purchasing neither of those items and just getting the rest of the items we purchase, which I'll talk about later. But the route with no projectile just has a little more luck factor to it, especially in the later stages of the game. Alright, in the library, or the book room, the players just want to get through without getting hit and not dying. It's obviously a giant chasm beneath them. If any of the players do die, they will lose 1/4 of their total gold, but they will be able to get it back, possibly. It turns into these money bags that you can then just make contact with or swing the shovel at to pick them up. Then, on my screen, Primorix has entered the King Knight fight first. There's a few different variations of this fight. Looks like Primorix is going for the fastest one that's pretty safe. Smoggy is probably also going to go for it. And they both got hit at exactly the same time. It's interesting. Like the same point in the fight. To give some history about the runners themselves, Smoggy has the world record at 43:36. I, myself, am in second place at 44:17, so I have some catching up to do. Primorix is in 4th place with a 44:32. I think Diesel's personal best is a 46:59, and Exploud's is a 46:37. So a lot of these players have been playing for... Smoggy's been playing for just over a year. The other 3 runners have been playing for at least 2 years, because I remember, yeah. Exploud and I have been playing basically since the game came out, and he and I were primarily low percent runners. Exploud is incredibly good at just basic shovel mechanics. I just want to throw that out there. As are all the runners really, but Exploud has a slight edge on them in my opinion. Aside from Smoggy, he was also incredibly good at low percent strats. It looks like Exploud is going with some extra safety strats of getting a music sheet and a hidden 200 gem. So Exploud's going to turn that music sheet into the Bard to get an extra 500 gold. Then Primorix has entered the Lich Yard, which is the lair of Spectre Knight. This level is actually somewhat dangerous, mostly because you can lose a lot of time due to these frog enemies, which have just a completely random set of jump patterns. And also later in this level we'll see the first instance of them breaking checkpoints, which I'll talk about later on. Most of the use of the Chaos Sphere in this level is just used to pick up some extra gold from some of the enemies. There actually are some strats where it's used to save time, such as the strat Primorix just did, and Smoggy will probably attempt. Off the ladder you do 2 short jumps and then throw the Chaos Sphere, and that hits the frog up into a position where you can bounce off of it and you're just high enough to get up to the next one. Smoggy went for an older strat, which is slightly easier to set up in my opinion, where you walk into the frog and then perform the jump, but it didn't work out. Looks like Exploud missed pretty much every strat. Oh, Primorix getting hit on those moving platforms. That spot is dangerous because you can get crushed to death there. It's very unlikely, but it can happen. As you've also seen, there's some of these dark rooms on the Donkey Kong Country and other games. The only dark room that's really dangerous to most runners is the last one, just because it's so long and over countless bottomless pits. This room, you just have to go over and get the skull to stand on the platform with you to lower it. The platforms will lower if there's 2 of things on them. Shovel Knight and an enemy, 2 enemies, whatever combination thereof. Now Primorix and Smoggy are going to be the first to break the 500 checkpoint. Every checkpoint in the game will give you a 200 gem at its center, and the rest of the item or the gold from them is dependent on the color of the checkpoint. So since the checkpoints they just broke had a yellow color, they all get 20 gems. And Primorix is going to grab this checkpoint. He's not going to break it, but he's just going to hit it. Smoggy's going to actually destroy it, which is slightly risky, but I have faith in him. So if you break a checkpoint, you do get the money, but the checkpoint stops functioning as a checkpoint. And then they're going to enter the third boss fight, excuse me, which is Spectre Knight. It was obviously, taking a break from Castlevania. But Spectre Knight will just kind of fly around, and then we hit him back to the right to make him teleport to the left. His first teleport is always guaranteed to the opposite corner. After that, it's random, but we want him to go to the top left and then the bottom left again. So Primorix got bad luck, and went back to the right. Smoggy also got some bad luck. It's not really a huge deal, because you can still kill Spectre Knight really quickly. You lose about 5 seconds if you do the backups optimally, though. So now Primorix and Smoggy will be the first to enter the dream sequences. In these dreams, well, I should add, after every level, there's something like this, but you can skip most of them. this one you can't skip. So Shield Knight will fall, and you're supposed to kill the enemies, and they drop like 5 times as much gold as normal, and then you catch Shield Knight at the end, after like 30 seconds or so. It's actually faster to die in these dreams. So what Primoryx is doing, and what Smoggy and every runner will do, is they'll try to possibly get some gold from some of the skeletons, but they'll also wait for the skeletons to raise their swords, and then run into them. When the skeletons raise their swords, they deal 1 whole damage on contact. So that's the fastest way to die, is to get hit by their swords 4 times. And then if you position yourself in such a way that you land under Shield Knight, you actually end the cutscene like a second or 2 faster than you would if you didn't catch Shield Knight. So Exploud will not catch her, meaning that's going to cost him some time. The next level for every runner will be the Lost City, Lair of Mole Knight, and the Lava level. In this level, they'll be buying the Dust Knuckles for 3,000 gold. So the first few rooms of this level aren't that technically challenging or that dangerous, but this long room that Primoryx has entered, with this big beetle, has given birth to some of the most dangerous tricks in the game, including this one that I found a setup for, whereby you wait for this beetle to walk over, then you free this bird, and you have to move through these blocks in such a way that you keep up with them, and you have to hope the slimes don't hit you. And then you jump, bounce off of him, and then hit the dirt block. So Primoryx got excellent luck there, because the slimes can screw you up. Smoggy got it as well. Diesel should not go for it. I can already tell the bird's way too far ahead of him. But he went for the backup and did not get it, and died. So Diesel will most likely revert to map to get back that gold. Reminder that on death you lose 1/4 of your current gold count. And it's extremely hard to make up in this second world because you basically have to break a ton of checkpoints to get that amount of gold back. So Primoryx is almost at the Dust Knuckles. So again, the Dust Knuckles cost 3,000 gold, and they cost 2 magic to use. The Dust Knuckles will pull you toward enemies and other objects, and they interact with pretty much anything the shovel can interact with. And they can also make you hang in the air. They can also speed up Shovel Knight, as long as you have a section where you can continuously punch, which we'll see later on. Exploud not too far behind, about to get Knuckles. Like Diesel got Beetle's Gift the second time. Primoryx having some trouble getting over this gap. There's a lot of variations of that trick. As you probably saw, Smoggy did some variation of it. He got across just fine. They can all be fairly tricky, and they're all dangerous, obviously, because you're trying to jump over pits and lava. In this last long room, where now Smoggy has taken a slight lead, I'm surprised he went to break that checkpoint. Normally, in the race he would not. But you wait for the fire to get to a certain point, and then you jump and punch through these blocks, and then you punch through this bird, which basically lets you skip waiting for the beetle throughout this section. Obviously only possible, well, more doable with the Knuckles. You can do something similar by manipulating the birds, but that's not important right now. For the Mole Knight fight, he'll kind of zoom back and forth like this a little bit, and you can get a ton of free hits in with the orbs, and then throwing them at the proper time just annihilates him. And both Primoryx and Smoggy got an excellent Mole Knight setup, though not perfect. Exploud having a little trouble breaking that safety checkpoint. It's generally actually really safe to break a checkpoint before a boss fight because we will probably not die to them. At any rate, most of the runners, actually every runner will want to go to Explodatorium next. So provided this map enemy, Reese, the guy with the boomerangs, does not block them, because he can go onto a stage on the map, they'll be able to enter it. The Explodatorium has some mechanics that are based around global cycles, meaning that from the moment the level opens, including the opening text, the runners want to play as perfectly as possible. So should they get hit in this long room, the whole cycle will be thrown off. And in this long room, it's important that they punch as many blocks as they can, so that they can keep up with the platform cycles at the end. So as you just saw Smoggy do, and as you're going to see Primoryx do, they'll meet that platform as it's going down. If you don't use the Dust Knuckles in that room and perform all those same punches, you cannot make that cycle. It's just not possible. You're too slow. But these giant pot lids are what's on the global cycle, and if you do everything perfectly, it lines up in this way where you can just walk through the room. Coming up, they're going to be fighting a mini-boss that takes 23 hits to kill. If you've played this game before, you might remember the Potion Master. He kind of stands there, throws some potions, and then turns into a big Yeti. It's actually possible to kill him before he transforms with proper orb setup, Dust Knuckle use, and some really good shoveling. Smoggy might get it, especially... Oh, he didn't reflect that red potion. The red potions that he throws out, you can hit back from anywhere on the screen, and they'll fly back toward him. The green ones, if you hit them, will just fly straight up in the air. So Smoggy actually could have gotten a pre-transformation kill had he hit that red potion back. Because they deal 1 or 2 damage of the 23 hits needed to kill the enemy. This room with the fire is also on a global cycle, and you can just you can manipulate it a bit, or manipulate your movement rather, to get through it faster. The ladder skip, now that Primoryx is at it, just involves you luring this Chompy, and then you can bounce off of him and grab that ladder off screen. That's one of the only ladders you can grab off screen. And Smoggy missed the Ice Climber setup. We'll see if Primoryx gets it. Essentially, these slime enemies will, anytime you jump or swing your shovel, they will jump, and Primoryx got it. It's a somewhat difficult trick because it just involves incredibly precise jump timings in order to actually make the slime do what you want. Then the next boss fight is Plague Knight, who isn't as random as most people might think. He essentially tries to always jump over Shovel Knight, so if you jump with him and damage him, you can kill him really quickly. And then you'll probably see some shenanigans from Smoggy where he summons the orbs as Plague Knight. He tried. You can actually trap the orbs in between the vats that he spawns, and the orbs will deal a ton of damage really quickly. Primoryx, I guess, lost the start of the fight. I'd have this problem myself as well. If you miss a couple hits on Plague, he seems to have different behavior at the end, which then just leads to you having to adapt. Alright, Smoggy's next stop, as well as the next stop for the other runners, will be the Outpost, the Armor Outpost. Here they'll buy the Charge Slash, which lets you hold the attack button to then deal one attack that deals one whole hit of damage, as opposed to 0.5 that the regular shovel does. And then they will also purchase the Conjurer's Coat. The Conjurer's Coat is the purple armor. It gives you 50 flat extra magic, as well as makes you take 0.5 extra damage from every attack. So this makes it possible for you to die in 3 hits, as opposed to 4, because things that now would deal 1 whole heart now deal, or things that did deal 0.5 now deal 1 whole. And things that would deal 1 whole now deal 1.5. We get this item before the Iron Whale, it's because the Iron Whale is honestly a safer level than the others. It's an incredibly straightforward level and is honestly not that dangerous. There are some cool shenanigans pulled off with the Dust Knuckles and the Chaos Orb though. Exploud finishing off Plague Knight. Weasel having a little trouble, but he got him. Coming up, Smoggy's and Primoryx are coming upon this tentacle room. They're going to bounce an orb off the ceiling, and as you saw, it annihilates every single tentacle before they reach across the screen. Normally in that room, you have to go around and break all of them, and it's really, really slow. And now Smoggy will fight the Anglerfish boss. He moves very slowly. This is basically an auto-scroller until you get to the area where you fight him. He'll shoot these little lamprey at you. The fish takes 20 hits to kill, but you can't damage him until he opens up his chest and you can hit his lantern. And this fish used to be a horrible source of pain in this run because he would change his height depending on where you were on the screen, and it was annoying to try and kill him with just the shovel. And you often didn't have enough magic without the Conjurer's Coat to deal a full knuckle kill on him. But instead, you can just use a setup of Charge Slash, 4 knuckles, and then repeat that, and he dies really quickly. Smoggy gets the Dirt Clod skip, where you just jump and hit it off the wall. And Primorix also did not have to heal, which is good. There aren't many spots to heal in this level, and you generally don't want to heal just because it wastes time. And with the 3 health they do have, they can survive at least 2 or 3 hits from Treasure Knight. Yeah, the first jump on that anchor Smoggy did in that room was pixel perfect, by the way. The rest you just have to find a way that works for you. You've got it. Diesel and Exploud coming up on the boss, the mini boss. Diesel did not get Conjurer's Coat. I wasn't paying attention, but I'm guessing the map enemy, Reese, blocked him. Smoggy is coming up on Treasure Knight. Treasure Knight gets absolutely destroyed by the Chaos Spear, if he gives you a good pattern. So, good pattern, which he got, is he stays over on the right. And Treasure Knight's dead. That fight took all of maybe 5 seconds. Alright, Diesel pulling ahead of Exploud after the mini-boss. Primorix looks like he got a bad pattern from Treasure. That happens. Oh, good thing to note, you can, as you saw Primorix do, pogo off of Treasure Knight at the top of the screen, but you don't actually want to kill Treasure Knight up there, because then he'll slowly float back to the ground, and it's slower to kill him that way. So Dream 2, you want to just take 1 hit from the Knights, and then get stabbed a couple times, or I get stabbed and then hit by a potion. In Dream 2, you're not necessarily concerned, at least I'm usually not concerned about if I can land under Shield Knight. I'm more concerned about dying quickly, because that effectively ends the Dream sequence earlier. The next level will be the Flying Machine, where they will purchase the Propeller Dagger for 4,000 gold. Now, they don't need to break any more checkpoints, and none of them really need to worry about collecting gold after this point, just because there is a ton of gold to pick up on the way to the Propeller Dagger. As you can see, Smoggy needs 105 to get it, Primorix needs 170. They can get all of that on the way to the item, so they don't need to break any more checkpoints. So the route effectively gets a little bit safer after this. Before Diesel goes to the Flying Machine, though, he will be going to purchase the Charge Slash and Conjurer's Coat. Exploud also getting a bad pattern on Treasure Knight. Smoggy forges onward through the Flying Machine. And Smoggy's going to come up on one of, I think, a unanimously hated room in this game, where this little propeller Jawa, as we call them, just kind of floats into your way. But he just floats up and throws some orbs at him. And then Smoggy's about to enter a mini-boss, and if you do a certain setup on this boss, you can actually bounce off of him and then onto the next screen after he dies. And you can get up to a platform earlier. Smoggy will probably get it, and he got it. Okay, Exploud has a fast Dream 2. Smoggy is about to buy the Propeller Dagger. While Primorix enters the mini-boss, we'll see if he gets the skip. And the Propeller Dagger costs, again, 4,000 gold, and it costs 4 magic to use. And it kind of moves Shovel Knight along in this little fashion, which allows you to skip some platforming, and does move you faster than regular walking. Smoggy opting for the safe strat of 1 propeller, then bouncing off 2 jellies after a damage boost. Then Smoggy has entered the Triple Jawa room, which is this horrible, horrible RNG-filled room. The Jawas also deal 1.5 damage when they make contact with you, so that's a pain. Smoggy did get hit, but he didn't get hit until the end of the room, so he was able to finish it quickly. That's much better than getting hit near the beginning, which basically makes the rest practically impossible. And Exploud getting hit by that mage, because he didn't punch through the projectile. It's unfortunate. Primorix gets a beautiful Triple Jawa room without getting hit. Hats off to him. Smoggy takes a break, relaxing by the block. This is still a very close race between... It's actually almost 2 really close races. I hate to put it that way, but it's what I'm seeing. The fans in this level that Smoggy just passed and that Primorix will come up to, they're all on a global cycle, aside from that one moving on the ceiling. In the room Smoggy's in now, you wait when you enter the room and don't start daggering until you hit the ceiling. So you'll see Primorix try and do the same strat. Mana magic management is very important in the last 3 levels just due to where you need to dagger, especially at the end of the flying machine, just because it makes getting through those rooms a lot easier. Now Smoggy enters the Propeller Knight fight. We'll see if he uses the quick kill. Probably will. Propeller Knight will fly away after you deal 8 hits, and depending on where you hit him in his cycle, he'll fly either to the top left or the top right. So to get him to fly to the top left, like he did for Smoggy, you have to wait to start your second set of hits until just before Propeller Knight will lunge at you. And I discovered that, I want to say, like the beginning of 2015 or something. I don't remember. But it's fairly precise and somewhat difficult. So Primorix actually hit Propeller Knight too soon, which is why he went over to the right. So now he has to do backup strats. And Exploud taking a death to the triple Java room as expected. So he just opts to try and do some safe strats to get through, and he's through. So Diesel pulled ahead of him. Smoggy blazing through the Clockwork Tower now. After you purchase the Propeller Dagger, you also don't have to worry about getting any gold, because you need 3,000 for the only item left in the run, the Mobile Gear, which is in the Clockwork Tower. Smoggy's coming up to it soon. But you get 3,500 gold from defeating Propeller Knight, so the game just gives you the money that you need. The gear itself costs 6 magic to use, and it's just a moving platform that can give you... You can jump off of it, obviously, for a little extra jump height. It can go over spikes, and it also has a hidden Easter egg on one of the bosses, which I won't spoil if you haven't seen it. Okay, we'll see if Diesel and Exploud get good wind tunnel rooms. It's like Diesel gets the setup, does not get hit by the spikes, and he's through. Excellent. So as you can see, the Propeller Dagger makes most of these rooms pretty trivial, but that's mostly a good thing. Aw, Diesel taking a death. Must have been at the very last room. I didn't see what happened. Unfortunate. Well, Exploud just pulled ahead, but he could easily fall behind if he dies again. Okay, made it through that room. The Clockwork Tower is also an incredibly short level. You can see Smoggy's almost done with it. Okay, Diesel gets a successful wind tunnel the second time as well. And Smoggy enters the second to last room, which is just a vertical auto-scroller. Something to note about that room is the daggers that spawn, the sign daggers. They spawn randomly, and they can actually spawn in a way that prevents you from climbing that ladder, so you just have to die. Which sucks. Luckily that didn't happen to him, and hopefully will happen to nobody else. Diesel actually uses a different version of the quick kill that he developed himself. And I really like it. He actually forces Propeller to go to the right and then follows him with a dagger and knuckles. I think it's incredible, personally. It's slower, but it's just really cool. Alright, Smoggy is about to enter the boss. Primorix not too far behind. Lower them stairs. So here's Tinker. And the gear just kind of destroys him. But wait, there's a phase 2. Now you'll see Smoggy put the Dust Knuckles to some really creative use. This strat of punching Tinker Knight was discovered by Engage, who held the world record for this game, or this category, for quite a long time actually. I think it was the longest a record stood before Smoggy entered the scene. And perfect boss kill from Smoggy. No surprises there. Alright, next level is the Stranded Ship. This is the last of the regular night levels before the Tower of Fate. This is the ice level. This level is also fairly short, but that's mostly due to having the propeller dagger and just zooming through rooms. And magic use is pretty tight in this level. There's not a whole lot of enemies that you kill that give you magic drops, and there aren't a lot of magic drops hidden away anywhere. Right here, this trick Smoggy's doing, where you jump off the gear and grab the ladder, you actually have to have VSync on in order for that to work. And then as you just saw, if you use the dagger with proper spacing, you can actually still kill an enemy but not bounce off of them with it. Smoggy being a little conservative in that room by not daggering immediately after bouncing off the mage. Exploud and Diesel are still pretty close. Exploud's almost to the Tinker Knight fight. Diesel just entering the auto-scroller. Oh, health pickups in the stranded ship are also practically non-existent. And we do 2 damage boosts in this level, so you ideally never want to get hit aside from those 2 spots, which so far Smoggy has managed to do. That leaves you with just enough health to do the boss fight optimally. Because no matter what, in the fastest version of these boss fights, you have to take at least 1 hit. And in the long room that Smoggy's about to come up to, we used to ride the gear through it, and then our community member named Azulag, who basically finds all these super cool frame-saving strats, found this strat. Oh, Smoggy is going to ride the gear for safety. There is a strat where you propeller dagger through the room and punch the blocks instead for some extra magic, which comes out to be slightly faster than riding the gear. And Smoggy actually getting the health before Polar Knight, so playing it incredibly conservatively, but I guess it is a race. Okay, Exploud having a little trouble with the Tinker Knight quick kill. And then looks like he doesn't know the backup damage boosts to get back up there quickly. And then reflecting those missiles as Exploud did actually does 1 whole damage to Tinker Knight. Oh, and I missed commentating Polar, but I'll have another chance with Primorix. Polar's a very simple boss in the speedrun. He's probably one of the easiest. There's a bunch of different strategies you can do that are around the same amount of time. I still think Smoggy's is probably fastest. Polar Knight will jump off the top of the screen after you deal a certain amount of damage. I think it's 8. And then he'll come back down, obviously. When he comes back down, he summons spikes. So as you see, Primorix has a completely different setup, but it still works just as well. Smoggy finishing off Dream 3. Exploud and Diesel still on pace with each other. Just entering the stranded ship. And Smoggy and Primorix are both on their way to the Tower of Fate, which are essentially the Wily Castle levels of this game. They all feature enemies and objects from previous levels, designed to be like a test of your knowledge of everything in the game. And there isn't really a lot of randomness in the Tower of Fate, aside from that rat that Smoggy just killed. If the rat moves to a certain spot, you can use him to bounce a little earlier than riding that gear, but it doesn't matter. So the rest of this level is incredibly consistent from the player perspective. As long as the player does what they're supposed to do, the level just kind of falls into place. Alright, looks like so far Diesel and Exploud have had very smooth stranded ships. Exploud has less health than I thought he would. That's he'll probably get the health either way, regardless, but now he's basically forced to. Smoggy's approaching the last couple of rooms, which are dark rooms, but the enemies generally do the same thing every time. He just wants to dagger over and around them as much as possible. Primorix is back in the Crusher. He gets through there smoothly. Exploud has finished the main level, so he's on to the boss. I think every runner opted for the gear strat in that room. Okay, Smoggy is at Black Knight 3. So the quick kill that worked on Black Knight 1 will work on Black Knight 3. And this is 3 because there's a map encounter enemy that doesn't spawn, which is Black Knight 2. Anyway, this quick kill is harder to do because you have less time in between shovel hits to keep Black Knight in the chain. So it really is a test of all your jump canceling ability and just, your ability to maintain a rhythm and make sure that you can keep him there. So Smoggy got it perfectly. Kudos to him. Let's see if Primorix can do it. I have faith. I've seen every one of these runners nail this kill. Oh, Exploud took a death to Polar Knight. Didn't notice that, so... Diesel has taken the lead from him. Smoggy enters Tower 2, which is a somewhat long level, and then features the boss rush at the end. And Primorix gets hit at the start of the fight, and then he manages to save it by daggering into Black Knight before he initiates his projectile phase, luckily. And then he locks it down in the left corner. So that loses him a little bit of time, because now Shovel Knight will have to walk across the screen before finishing the level. But it definitely saved more time than letting Black Knight grow wings and fly around the stage. Alright, Diesel's still a little bit ahead of Exploud now after Exploud's recent death. And in case you didn't know, as you'll see Smoggy doing here and every runner doing soon, you can go above that level. Now Smoggy's about to enter the vertical auto-scroller. There's not really a whole lot to talk about there, other than you can jump above the blocks before they spawn, which just makes the whole thing really safe because you never have to worry about getting hit by enemies. Alright, Diesel enters the Crusher. So I should mention that since we have Propeller Dagger, we're able to skip a couple cycles of the Crusher, which saves about, I think, somewhere between 5 and 13 seconds. I don't remember exactly. And Primorix punches through all the slimes and the blocks. Okay, good. Diesel got through the Crusher without getting trolled. Alright, Smoggy is coming up to the boss rush at the end of this auto-scroller, which Primorix is about to enter that auto-scroller. The boss rush is completely random as far as what order you fight the knights in. The only rule is that the Polar Knight will be within the first 3 enemies that you fight in the boss rush. The reason for this being that because Polar Knight can summon spikes, Yacht Club Games did not want players to get really far into the boss rush and then die a cheap death to getting killed by spikes. Because if you let Polar Knight live long enough, there's no floor left for Shovel Knight to stand on. Let's see, after each boss fight, you get a food platter, and then every other boss fight, the food platter also has magic. So it's very important that every runner manages their magic appropriately to have magic for mainly Mole Knight, Plague Knight, Treasure Knight, and Tinker Knight. Those are the bosses that take the most magic. And since we have the Conjurer's Coat now but have no extra health, all the bosses are a lot more dangerous. Propeller Knight actually isn't very dangerous in boss rush if you can perform one of the quick kills. Looks like Diesel gets a perfect Black Knight kill, I think. See if Exploud gets it here. Plague Knight and Treasure Knight, especially in boss rush, are incredibly dangerous. Because Treasure's Anchors now deal 1.5, and touching him deals 1. All of Plague Knight's attacks will deal 1 whole. And just due to his nature, he can just completely destroy you if he wants to. Luckily, he did not destroy Smoggy. And Primorix gets him first, so that's probably a huge load off of Primorix's mind, since he's getting the probably what most consider the worst part of Boss Rush out of the way early. Looks like Exploud got a perfect Black Knight fight. There are some slight changes to the Boss Rush room. You see Smoggy getting an absolute perfect kill on Spectre. The Boss Rush room is actually slightly smaller than the other boss rooms, and Spectre Knight actually sits slightly lower, so you have to use some different strats on him. The rest of the bosses are more or less the same. Propeller Knight doesn't fly away after 2 cycles, he flies away after 3, so you can do a quick kill similar to the one you do in the actual stage. The rest of the strategies are pretty much the same. Mole Knight fight is actually flipped, and he goes through the opposite walls that he does in the regular level. Here you see Smoggy using the low percent quick kill I found on Propeller Knight. It makes the fight incredibly safe if you can pull it off. Smoggy's last boss is Treasure Knight. Just to give you an idea of how crazy good Smoggy is and how consistent he is 14 seconds off of his PB pace. And he has the world record at 43:36, so he's on pace for a 43:50 right now. Like we're having some issues with Primorix's stream. Oh, he's good now. Alright, so Smoggy enters the final level. He recently worked out a new quick kill for the first boss of this level that only uses 12 magic. We'll see if he goes for it here. I imagine he'll try. It's a lot harder to do, no matter whether you use his variation or my variation. They're both really difficult, but still totally possible. Diesel still just a little bit ahead of Exploud. Morix having a little bit of trouble keeping Spectre Knight in the corner. Alright. I've tried, okay, Smoggy did go for the old quick kill, which uses 2 orbs. I don't think he got it. I don't know what went wrong. He looks very displeased on his stream, but he's still on pace for a 43, which is great. And he and I are racing at AGDQ. Just a shameless plug. So I don't know what his plan is for the race there, what kind of kill he'll go for. But he's got Shield Knight. Time will end when he deals the final hit to this boss. Meanwhile, Primorix has entered Tower 3. Alright, Diesel has finished off Propeller Knight with style. He's halfway through the boss rush. And he gets Tinker. Diesel actually does not go for the full Knuckle strat on Tinker Knight, I believe. Okay, looks like Smoggy fell, but that's time. 43:50 for him. Using the Knuckles, you can actually stay up in the air with her the whole time, but it is somewhat difficult to do because it's kind of dependent on what height you get when you start punching. Anyhow, Diesel just doing his tried and true pogos on Tinker Knight to just finish as safely as possible. Exploud now at the halfway point in the boss rush. See Primorix riding the gear there before catching shield. We'll see if Plague Knight is nice to Exploud. Looks like he was, for the most part. for the Enchantress fight, Shield Knight will jump from one of the platforms on the right or the left. It depends on which one she goes to first at the start of the fight. And Morg's doing a very interesting kill that I haven't seen before. That's time for him. Okay, Diesel at a solid, like, maybe 20-second lead. And Sploud just missing the Tinker quick kill with Knuckles. Has to do some pogos to finish him off. And all Sploud has to do to Treasure Knight is spam some orbs on him and kill him. Oh, Smoggy scrapped the 12 magic kill because he didn't like the consistency. I can agree with him there. It is really annoying. Oh, since Diesel's here now, the blocks in this room always come at you in the same order, and they fly toward Shovel Knight. So you can go anywhere on this screen and find a way that works for you to get through this screen. Pretty much every runner uses that second platform from the right since the beginning of running this game, just because we're so used to seeing it and we know all the exact patterns that we're going to get. But you don't have to stand there, just in case anyone is wondering. So Diesel playing very safe and just daggering way over those blocks as opposed to daggering at the start. He's gonna ride the gear all the way to Enchantress. Accidentally threw out another gear, it looks like. We'll see if he can get the quick kill here. Okay, Diesel actually goes for a setup that I really like. It isn't guaranteed to kill her instantly, but it gets a lot of damage. As you can see, she was at 1 hit remaining. So that was still a very good fight. Literally everything went right for him aside from not getting that last hit, but it's really hard to get that hit because of Enchantress and her position on the screen. We'll see what kind of fight Exploud gets here. Enchantress can do a bunch of random things like choose to go back to the right. It honestly makes no sense. Exploud trying to do a little bit of a like low percent hybrid fight, but it works out for him and he kills her during the dives. Alright, in the Enchantress 2 fight, it's luck based whether or not she shoots orbs out of her left or right hand. And then Diesel actually still uses the dagger. I forgot. Oh, he missed the charge. Time for Diesel. Exploud also opting to use dagger. Dagger is probably safer. Time for Exploud. 48:32 by his timer. A solid sub 49s from every runner, and of course Smoggy completely, dominating, as expected. Alright. Well, I think we either have some other racers or we have a whole other race coming up. I don't know. Yeah, it looks like Tolu actually just finished. Let's see. Not sure. Did Jade enter? Yeah, looks like she did. I'm gonna quickly message everybody and see what's going on. Okay, so looks like all of our runners are up for doing a another run. All right. I guess we just wait a couple moments for all the runners to take their positions again. Well, if anyone has any questions about the run that I did not answer in the last race, please post them in chat now before we get started. I'll see if I can get you an answer. I believe currently we're just waiting for some more people to enter. Let's see, looks like we're just waiting on Exploud and Smoggy. They both went to grab something to drink, which is understandable after giving those amazing performances. everyone has entered but Smoggy. What expansions for this game are out? Currently just Plague of Shadows is out, which allows you to play as the boss character Plague Knight. And he differs vastly from Shovel Knight in that he can fly, for one thing. For anyone who didn't know, part of the Kickstarter campaign for this game was to make 3 boss characters playable with their own campaigns, and that was chosen by fans during the Kickstarter. The chosen characters were Plague Knight, Spectre Knight, and King Knight. The next DLC coming out, these are all available for free, by the way. The next is Spectre Knight, and his campaign called Spectre of Torment should be out sometime in the spring. That's the so far that's the posted date, so we don't actually know yet. And then King Knight will come sometime after that. There are also a couple of other modes they want to add to the game, such as I believe a body swap mode where you play as a female Shovel Knight and rescue a male Shield Knight. I think you can actually change the gender of most of the characters in that mode. I believe they're still working it out. The other mode coming is Battle Mode, where you can actually play as Shovel Knight as well as any of the other boss or main characters, so Shield Knight, Enchantress, Propeller Knight, and you can actually play like a little Smash Bros type game. But that will probably come with King Knight. I don't actually know the status of any of those projects, obviously, because I don't work for Yacht Club Games. They're all very nice people at Yacht Club. They've done a lot to kind of foster the speedrunning community for this game. They've made a lot of changes at our request, which is amazing. It's an amazing thing, and they are incredibly supportive of every runner. Just huge shout outs to them for being such good people. Alright, should I just refresh the page instead? I'll do that. Tap it quickly enough, and refreshed. Alright, looks like we're just waiting for everybody to ready up. Yes, all of the DLCs will be coming to every version of this game completely for free. So this game is out on 3DS, Wii U, Xbox One, PlayStation 3 and 4, the PlayStation Vita, as well as PC. It's also on, what is the Amazon Fire Stick or whatever that thing is. It's playable on that. There's one other thing. I forget. Someone got it to play on, not the Commodore, but some other really obscure thing. Alright, the race has begun, according to the race channel. Apologies, my commentary is not on point. It hasn't started on my multi-twitch yet. And there they all go. I'll refresh one more time, just to be absolutely sure. So again, in case you're just joining us, this is Shovel Knight. I'm Munchakoopas. I've run every category for this game, but I'm not nearly as good as Smoggy at most of them. I'll be doing commentary this evening. I'm currently second place in the 80% category, behind Smoggy, who has the world record. Our runners this evening are Smoggy, Primorix, S-Diesel, and Exploud Your Ear. All of them have times below 50 minutes, and even below 47 minutes. So this should be a very, very good race. The main goal of the first level in this game is to just gather as much gold as possible and obviously go fast. So all the runners want to be close to 300 gold by the end of the level. If you've never seen a Shovel Knight run before, but you've played the game before, you might notice that they're jumping a lot after they swing the shovel. The reason for that being is that when you swing the shovel on the ground, you get stuck in this type of animation that it holds Shovel Knight in place. If you jump, it cancels that animation. So you can keep moving or then do an attack in the air, which allows us to, as you'll see Smoggy do, dig through this dirt incredibly quickly, and it also helps you deal a lot of damage to most beefier enemies. Something else to note about the planes, it introduces you to a ton of mechanics like bouncing off of enemies, climbing ladders. For the ladders, you can jump off of the top of them, and Shovel Knight's animation changes when he reaches the point on the ladder that he's allowed to jump off. And then coming up, I believe every runner is going to go for this zip, which skips a couple of rooms, and depending on how you do it, can save a handful of seconds. All you really want to do is bounce on this dragon a few times and get him to spit some bubbles over to this side of the screen. And then when the bubbles reach the top of the screen, you want to bounce off of both of them. And then what this does is it pushes Shovel Knight back through the screen transition, but at a certain point in that transition, it tries to put you in the bottom of the room up and to the left of that room, which normally you can't access in any other way. And then that just kind of zips Shovel Knight to the right, and it skips a couple of rooms. So, fairly close race so far. And Smoggy and Primoryx are both at Black Knight, Smoggy taking a hit at the start. This is a true test of your jump canceling ability, because all you want to do is push Black Knight into the right corner, and essentially what it is you jump to get above his, you get above his first shovel swing, and swing your shovel, and then right after you attack, you jump. You just constantly keep up that rhythm. So next, every runner has to go to the village. It's just mandatory because it doesn't let you past it until you enter. And then they'll all go to Pridemoor Keep, the lair of King Knight. In this level, they're not really worried about breaking any checkpoints or buying anything. They just want to get a little bit of gold and beat the boss. Defeating King Knight will give them 1,500 gold, so they just kind of want to pick up as much as they can for later on. In total, through the run, they need 20,500, I believe. And then you just saw Smoggy do it, the other runners will come up to it, but it's a trick called Gentle Hop, and it allows you to increase your jump height by 1 tile if you jump and then swing the shovel when you hit the screen transition during the startup of your jump. You have to space it carefully, but it's a fun trick to do. It's only used in that one spot in the entire game, though, in the any % category. The Pridemoor Keep, very straightforward level. A lot of holding right, there's not a lot of pits. We do see a damage boost later on one of the griffins. There are a few different routes for the any % category. All of these runners will be getting the Chaos Sphere in the village after this level. Another popular category, or at least another viable category, that's used by Engage, the 3rd place runner of this game, is the Flare Wand. It actually takes less time to acquire the Flare Wand, and has a lot of time saver strats similar to the Chaos Sphere, but the Chaos Sphere just has more time saves than the Flare. But the routes are pretty much even. We don't really have an exact like time amount for either of them, but they both work very well if you can pull off the strats. Orb is probably safer for a beginner. All the players moving smoothly through this level. Looks like Sploud's a little bit behind for some reason. And we're going to come up to the King Knight fight soon. With King Knight, you essentially want to try and move with him as he jumps around the room. I wish I could begin to explain the setup for the quick kill, but it's very difficult. The Griffin that Smoggy just hit and that Primoryx is coming up to, at least on my screen, you can enter enemy hitboxes in this game by damaging them. When enemies take damage from you, they cannot damage you back, and that also goes for their projectiles. Smoggy taking a hit, 2 hits actually in the King Knight fight, but we'll see how he recovers here. Looks like Primoryx actually got the start of the kill right, and he did a lot more damage than Smoggy early on. Alright, so every runner is going to go back to the village now, and they're going to go into the basement to talk to Chester and buy the Chaos Sphere. You can only buy it in the village, unfortunately. If it were purchasable somewhere else, we would probably go for that, unless of course it was slower. The orb costs 2,500 gold. It costs 6 magic to use, and it summons a projectile that will bounce around the screen. And it deals 1 damage to each enemy every time it passes through them, and you can have up to 2 on the screen at a time. And their base magic stat is 30, so they can throw 5 before they run out. So you might see them pick up a lot of bloom jars or throughout the various levels. Those actually refill magic. The small ones refill 5 magic, the large ones will refill 30, so at present time that will give them max magic. Later on they'll get an item that will give them more magic, so mana management isn't too important at the beginning of the run. There aren't a lot of tricks that use the orb in the early stages, but there's still a handful. But they give you so much magic that it's really not important to manage it. We get the orb before Spectre as opposed to doing the levels in the opposite order, just because you can get a little more gold and there's a few time saves in this level, like what Smoggy just did and what Primorix will also probably try to do. Jump off the ladder with 2 short hops, throw the orb, and then bounce off the frog as he gets moved into the air by the hit from the orb. And then you bounce off of the frog. Will they be doing a Plague Knight run tonight? They will not. So not a whole lot else to talk about at the moment. Obviously this level has some of these dark rooms, which if you play the game enough isn't really a problem. The only one that can be a problem to any runner is the last one, just because things can go wrong in it and it's incredibly long and you're going over a bottomless pit. In this room that Smoggy and Primorix are in now, the frogs obviously move randomly, and you just kind of want to go over, move this skull to the platform and get through it as quickly as possible. And then you can kill the frogs with the orbs to save yourself some time. Smoggy just broke a checkpoint, which now Primorix is going to do. When you break a checkpoint, it gives you some gold, as you saw, but it also makes the checkpoint not be a checkpoint. So if they die, they will skip that checkpoint and go back to the previous one. And Smoggy's actually going to break the one before the dark room, which surprises me that he's doing in a race, but I guess he's gone for every risky strat I know, so I guess he's just feeling confident. Which makes sense. If you can do it, go for it. So Smoggy having no trouble getting through this dark room, which does not surprise me. Diesel getting some sass from the frogs. Looks like Exploud took a death somewhere. Not sure what happened, but he's very far behind. As for the amount of money you get, before that, for Spectre Knight, we hit him back to the right because then he'll teleport bottom left. That one is guaranteed to be to the opposite corner, and then we let him come back to the left, and we want him to then go to the bottom left, but it's completely luck-based. So Smoggy getting some bad luck there has to then do this backup strat to get a fast kill. Looks like Primorix actually got good luck, but got hit by the scythe, which is surprising. Diesel also getting good luck, I think. Now Smoggy and Primorix will enter the first of the 3 unskippable dream sequences. Normally in these, you try to kill some enemies which give you roughly 5 times as much gold. And then Shield Knight will fall from the top of the screen. And the idea is that you catch her, which just ends the dream. However, it is faster to die as quickly as possible in these dreams. So what every runner is going to want to do is maybe pick up some gold from the skeletons on the right, but they're going to run into the skeletons on the left after they raise their swords, because they do more damage at that point. And then ideally they want to die in 4 hits. And then if they land under Shield Knight, they can still catch her, which saves a second or 2 as well. But so far it looks like every runner has a good placement. Diesel not landing under Shield Knight, so that'll cost him some time, but not a whole lot. The next level for every runner will be the Lost City, Lair of Mole Knight, the lava level. In this level they'll be buying their next item, which I'll talk about later. Coming up is a trick we call Beetle Skip, just because we skip waiting for the beetle. The room is effectively an auto-scroller for that reason. but you can speed it up. And I found this setup which you free this bird enemy that takes 4 hits to kill, so he's pretty beefy. You wait for the beetle to come over, and then you fall off this platform and free the bird. And then you try and keep up with the bird through this room and bounce off of it to skip the final gap in this room. It requires a lot of things to go right. It also requires the slimes to be nice to use. So Smoggy got it. It's not necessarily... Oh, Primorix got hit, so he unfortunately will have to wait for the beetle most likely. That is his choice. He does have the option now, though, of getting some extra gold for safety, which is good. Looks like he's going for at least the dirt pile. Diesel got it, so Diesel's pulled ahead of Primorix now. And they will be breaking some more checkpoints in this level very soon. What determines the amount of gold you get from a checkpoint is the color of it. Every checkpoint has a core 200 gem, and then it will be surrounded by other gems. And whatever, like they all have a different amount between like 1, 5, 10, 20, etc. What determines the amount is the color of the checkpoint. So, like the one Primorix just passed was green, so that one would have given him a 200 and a bunch of 10 gems. I forget how many. But the green checkpoints give 350. The one Smoggy just broke gives 500, and that one is one we break in a normal route. There are some safer routes worked out for gold, but Smoggy seems to be avoiding all of those. Anyway, they've all now purchased Dust Knuckles. It's Cloud coming up to it now. It costs 3,000 gold to buy, it costs 2 magic to use, and they punch through enemies and objects. Essentially anything that the shovel can interact with, the Dust Knuckles can also interact with. Smoggy's coming up to the second Beetle auto-scroller, which again, we can speed up. And he broke that checkpoint for the 750, which while not super dangerous if you can pull off this trick consistently, which he can, in a race it can be a little nerve-wracking, but you essentially just punch the blocks, free the birds, and then punch through the birds to skip waiting for the beetle again. Now Smoggy will come to the Mole Knight fight. Mole Knight will just go back and forth on the screen, and if you throw orbs at the right place, you can get a lot of hits in on him. The idea is to get at least 2 shovel hits or a shovel hit and a pogo on him, and then throw orbs with proper spacing so they just kind of follow him around. Then Primorix usually opts to not do the Beetle 2, as we call it. We just call it Beetle 1 and Beetle 2. Cloud did a low percent version, which is incredible. That's not surprising coming from him. But Primorix does not like to do that strat in races just because, I don't know, he feels it's unsafe. I can kind of agree, but... Anyway, ideally, that all the runners want to go to the Explodatorium next, which Smoggy has entered. That can be blocked, though, by some of the map enemies that spawn, as they can walk around willy-nilly and block your path, which just means you have to change up your route a little bit. Anyway, in Explodatorium, there's certain parts of it that are based on global cycles. So in the first 3 or 4 rooms, you want everything to go really well. And you actually want to punch all these blocks as Smoggy is doing, so you can make a platform cycle at the end. If you don't punch all those blocks, it is impossible. So he got it. So far, so good. So he should meet the cycle in a couple rooms here. And, oh, so Exploud got reused, as we say, so he's going to go to the Iron Whale, which normally he would go to after the Explodatorium. It's not a huge deal, it just costs a little bit of time. So the room Smoggy's in now with these pots, the lids that move up and down are what are on the global cycle, which also includes the opening text of the level. So if you play perfectly, you can just kind of walk through that room at a very nice pace and never have to stop, really. Then Smoggy will be coming up to a mini-boss here soon. The mini-boss takes 23 hits to kill, and he can transform. It is possible to kill him before the transformation, it just requires good item placement. Looks like Diesel has an okay pattern through this room. Looks like he lost a little bit of time somewhere, but he's got it. So the green potions during the mini-boss fight, if you hit them with your shovel, they just go straight up in the air. The red ones will fly back toward the mini-boss, and they will deal extra damage when they collide with him. So coming up, Smoggy is going to set up the ladder skip, which just involves luring this fairy or chompy enemy to follow you to allow you to bounce off of him and grab this ladder off screen. And he got it. And that's one of the only ladders in the game that you actually can grab off screen. It's because trying to put a ceiling there just makes the room with the Chompy very annoying. And Smoggy missed the Ice Climber skip again. He got the backup. We'll see if Primorix can get it when he gets there. And here we see Exploud in the Iron Whale coming up on the Fish boss. The boss takes 23 hits to, or I'm sorry, just 12 hits to kill. You have to wait until he opens his chest like this. And normally, on an optimal route, you'd have the purple armor for extra magic, which would make this fight trivial. Looks like Exploud saved magics just so he could do that fight. And Primorix did get the Ice Climber strat, so he lured the Slime Knight over and then bounced off of him just before the screen transition. Smoggy getting a slightly different Plague Knight pattern, but still finishes him off very quickly. Plague Knight isn't as random as most people think. He essentially just tries to jump over Shovel Knight, so you can jump with him and keep damaging him. It's hard to learn to do, but it is something that the player can control. Exploud making quick work of most of the Iron Whale here. See if he gets the anchor skips. He did not get the first one. We'll see if he can do the rest. I have faith. Alright, now Smoggy, Primorix, and Diesel will be going to the Armor Outpost, which is where Smoggy is now. There, they will be purchasing the Charge Slash and the Conjurer's Coat. Exploud played it very safe in the Anchor Room, so he didn't die. So the Charge Slash deals 1 whole damage after you hold your attack button for a moment. The Conjurer's Coat makes you take 0.5 extra damage from everything, but gives you 50 extra magic. So now their total magic will be 80. And then they go to the Iron Whale. The reason we go to the Iron Whale with the Conjurer's Coat is to have more magic for more tricks in the level and a more consistent mini-boss fight, as well as taking extra damage in the dream sequence so we can end it sooner. Exploud finishing off Treasure Knight with a bunch of orbs and shovel swings. Right, Diesel opted to not get Conjurers before Treasure. I don't know if he was blocked or not looking at his screen. Okay, now Exploud has opted to not get the Conjurer's Coat before Explodatorium. That's probably a good choice because there are actually a lot of damage boosts that are done in Explodatorium should things go wrong. So I would say it's a good choice for this type of race. He got hit, so the cycles are now messed up. You can actually perform similar cycles in a low percent fashion, but we'll see how he adapts now. There's Smoggy coming up to the mini-boss, the Anglerfish. He's going to have probably a slightly faster fight than Exploud, because he has Charge Slash and more Dust Knuckles available for use. Exploud doing some low percent strats, which actually are just as fast as the Orb strat in that rat room. We'll see if Diesel gets this. And he got the Tentacle Room skip. Is Primorix gonna get it? Yep, he got it clean. If you bounce an orb off a ceiling, it actually kind of accelerates it and moves it at a weird angle to hit all of those tentacles, which saves a little bit of time. And Smoggy opting to heal. That's probably the best choice there. That's the best spot in this level to get health. There are 2 others later, but they take a little more time. And the only thing he's really worried about hitting him is the boss at this point. But there is 1 damage boost, which he already did. And then he wants to not take any more hits until the boss. And Treasure Knight, when you have Conjurer's Coat and only 3 health, is dangerous because he can kill you in 2 anchors, because they will now deal 1.5. We'll see if Smoggy gets the Pixel Perfect jump again. He did not. He jumped a little too early. Diesel got somewhat slow kill, but that's because he didn't have enough knuckles, I don't think. Smoggy getting through Anchor Room, and he took a hit, I guess, from one of the fireballs, so we'll see if he opts for the health, and he is. So this health takes roughly 7 seconds or so to pick up, but I mean, you gotta do what you gotta do. Otherwise, he most assuredly would die to Treasure Knight. So Primorix and Diesel not too far apart. Exploud looks like he got a great ladder skip. I unfortunately have not been following him. So my fault. My apologies, everyone. Exploud opts to just do the backup strat in this room. Good idea. And Smoggy getting bad luck on Treasure Knight. So you can kill Treasure Knight at the top of the screen like that, but if you do, it's slower because then he slowly floats back down to the bottom of the screen and you have to wait for the level to end. Looks like Diesel had a good anchor room. Guessing Primorix did as well. We'll see what kind of luck Treasure Knight wants to give them. Ideally, Treasure Knight will just kind of sit in place and get hit by the orbs as opposed to moving to the left, and Primorix has gotten good luck. Little low on health, but at this point it doesn't matter. Treasure Knight has been annihilated. And Diesel's actually in a very safe position, even though he only has 2.5 health. Just because since he's not taking extra damage, he should be alright. And bad luck, don't kill him at the top. Oh, he killed him. So now you'll see what I was talking about. Exploud having a little bit of a hard time with Plague. But as you saw on Diesel's screen, Treasure just kind of lazily floats back to the bottom. So Smoggy already done with Dream 2, no surprise there. He's 18 seconds behind his PB, for anyone curious. Let's see, what else is going on here? Morix having very average Dream 2. That's an interesting way to die. Exploud and Diesel are practically synced right now. They are in perfect sync on my screen, so that's exciting. Smoggy has entered the Flying Machine. He actually doesn't have to worry about picking up any more gold, like, or go out of his way to do it, because he only needs 159 more for the item he wants, which is the Propeller Dagger. And you get a ton of gold in this level. More on the item later on. And Primorix and Diesel not too far behind. Still a sizable lead for Smoggy. So the Flying Machine is host to some of the most annoying enemies in the game, what we call the Propeller Jawa. Smoggy has a good setup for that one, even though he did get hit. I wonder if he'll opt to get health. Probably not. Coming up, Smoggy's going to enter a mini-boss, and if he does the mini-boss fight right, he can bounce off of the he can bounce off of the boss as his last hit, which lets him skip a platforming section. And oh, he killed the boss early somehow, so he opts to grab the health. Good choice, I'd say. Now Smoggy's going to go enter this room after these fans. So you actually have to go up this screen and then back down to get enough momentum past the fans. So Smoggy's going to buy the Propeller Dagger, as every render will be. It costs 4,000 gold. It costs 4 magic to use, and it just moves Shovel Knight through the air or along the ground at a faster pace than walking. And it just makes a lot of platforming very trivial. It does damage enemies. Let's see what kind of strat he goes for in this jellyfish room. Looks like he's going for double pogo. Alright. And Smoggy's coming up to what we call triple Jawas, where if you propeller in the right places, the Jawas will pretty much always do the same thing. And he got hit by one of the cannonballs because he was a little too slow at the end there. But he didn't die, so that's the important thing. So I don't know if Smoggy will opt for the health before the boss. He might. We'll see. Looks like Primorix is having a very smooth level so far. We'll see how his triple Jawas go. And, oh, he got pushed, so he's gonna wait just a second to be as safe as possible. Diesel grabbing the health from the mini-boss. Exploud on his way to the dagger. So now Primorix and Smoggy actually in the same room. Smoggy maybe about 10 or 12 seconds ahead, time-wise. Alright, the fans that Smoggy's encountering and that Primorix is about to get to are all on a global cycle. And coming up is the wind tunnel room, where you wait and then dagger when you enter, or when you hit the ceiling, and then just kind of proceed as usual. Looks very risky, but it's actually very simple to do. I made that setup the way it is so that anyone could do it if they can just learn the simple gestures involved. And Diesel getting a picture-perfect Jawa room. That was incredible. Alright, Smoggy did not grab the health, so if he gets hit, he is dead. But the quick kill is, you know, practically makes you invincible, and he nails it. And Primorix starting his second set of hits just a little bit early, which is unfortunate. Whether or not Propeller Knight flies right or left is dependent on how soon you hit him at the start of the second set of shovel attacks. As you saw with Smoggy, Propeller went to the left. With Primorix, he went to the right. So Exploud and Diesel, again, not too far behind each other. Smoggy making his way through the Clockwork Tower. Smoggy has no need to worry about any gold, as do neither of the other runners, because you get over 3,000 from killing Propeller Knight, and then the only item left, which we're getting in Clockwork Tower, costs 3,000 gold. The item is the Mobile Gear. It costs 6 magic to use, and is effectively just another mobile platform you can carry around. It does deal 1 whole damage if it's active and collides with an enemy. And it does have an Easter egg on the boss of this level, so I won't spoil that if you haven't seen it yet. But it's a very useful tool just for skipping some sections with a lot of spikes, particularly in this level, which you will see very soon. Here's the gear being used. It just kind of allows you to go past this auto-scroller. Primorix almost there. Diesel and Exploud incredibly close. Something to note about the trio of levels they're in now is that health refills are seldom. So any damage they take, they generally will probably want to take a health refill. Well, should they get really low. There just aren't many spots for them to refill health, so taking hits just adds up. It ends up taking a lot of time if you choose to refill your health. And then in the room Smoggy's in now, these daggers can spawn completely randomly, and they can spawn in such a way that prevents you from climbing that ladder, which of course will kill you if you fall below the screen. And Diesel and Exploud on their way to the gear. Very standard Clockwork Tower for every player right now. So Smoggy's coming up on the boss. He's going to use the gear to do some interesting things. And he's dead. But surprise, there's a phase 2. So that is the Easter egg I was talking about. And that Easter egg is specific to Tinker Knight. It also works in the boss rush. So that is one of the main reasons we will always buy the gear, is because it saves us the trouble of having to actually fight Tinker Knight twice over. And Smoggy's going to go for the super kill knuckle kill, but drops it by, I think, shoveling instead of punching. I think that happened because Smoggy has his relic input bound to up on the D-pad and attack. He does play on keyboard though, so it's actually W and the attack button. You can set your relic use to be either up and attack, or to be just a single button. I myself use a single button to avoid that very thing that just happened to Smoggy. But it's completely down to personal preference. There's only a handful of tricks that you can only do with one way or the other. And Primorix also getting a very nice Tinker kill. Diesel and Exploud practically tied, based on my screen. The Smoggy's entered the Stranded Ship, which is where every runner will of course be going next. Mana management as well as health are very important in this level. There's only really one spot, aside from just before the boss, to get health. And you don't really kill a lot of enemies, and there's not a whole lot of magic strewn about this level. But every runner kind of has a different set of enemies they like to kill. Like Smoggy just punched that one for an extra 5 magic. Again, the small magic jars refill 5 magic, the large ones refill 30. So when you have Conjurer's Coat, you always get magic from most enemies. I forgot to mention that. But basically they're hoping that they get a random 30 magic drop from any one of these enemies. because that equals more propeller daggers, which equals more speed. Smoggy being a little conservative in this room with all the Vikings and the mage. But luckily he hasn't taken any unnecessary hits yet, and he's going to perform a damage boost in the next room and then one later on. Looks like Diesel and Exploud had good Tinker fights. I'm not entirely sure. They're practically synced. Okay, Smoggy again, not taking any unnecessary hits. Primorix as well, having a good level so far it seems. Not taking any damage he doesn't want to. And Smoggy now, he might heal before the boss, but in a regular PB attempt. Whoa, what just happened to Primorix? So, as you saw, when you hit that platform, you summon a rainbow, which you can then stand on. But for some reason, when he hit the platform, he then, like, was too low or something for the rainbow to take effect, so he just fell right through it. That is incredibly unfortunate. I've actually never seen that happen to anybody. And Smoggy did heal, and he'll use the orbs to get a ton of hits in on Polar Knight. Polar Knight is actually a very, like from a speedrun perspective, very easy and very safe boss. You can do the entire fight without getting hit. It's a little slower, of course, but completely possible. So even though Primorix took that death, he still has a sizable lead against Exploud and Diesel. Smoggy now has a huge lead, of course, but that's sort of expected. And Smoggy's now in Dream 3. This is the easiest one to die in, because you just have to stand here in this one spot, and these nice bearded men throw their spears at you. Primorix opting for the gear strat in this long spike room. Imagine Diesel and Exploud will do the same thing. Primorix also chooses to heal, just to be perfectly safe. Right, Smoggy's going to enter the Tower of Fate now. These are like the Wily Castle levels of Shovel Knight. They give you enemies and other challenges from previous levels to kind of test your knowledge of the game. Luckily, most things in this level are very player dependent, meaning there's almost no luck or RNG involved. The only thing really is this one rat right here, who if he moves to a certain spot, you can then bounce off of him and get through this room a little sooner. No big deal, Smoggy just used the gear. But the rest of it is basically entirely dependent on the player's ability to play the level well. Smoggy enters the Crusher. The rest of our runners are in Dream 3. Primorix still has a slight lead. So in this Crusher, the Propeller Dagger allows us to skip a few cycles, which obviously saves some time. And then there's one pot in this level that's on a global cycle, right there. So it's just important that you kind of meet and adapt to that thing. Now the rest of our runners have entered the Tower of Fate, or are about to. Smoggy's coming up on the last 2 or 3 rooms, and then another Black Knight fight. So this is actually the third Black Knight fight that will exist in Shovel Knight. There is another fight that comes from a map encounter, but we never see that in the speedrun because he doesn't spawn. The same quick kill that you saw on Black Knight 1 will work on this fight, but it's much harder to execute because you have a much smaller time frame to keep Black Knight stun locked. So it is the true test of your jump canceling ability in this game. We'll see how Smoggy fares with the fight. Primorix having a good Crusher. Diesel and Exploud not too far behind him. So far it looks like Smoggy has locked Black Knight down. As long as he doesn't drop it, he's in the clear, and he's clear. Something else to note is that you want to finish the tower level, first tower level, as close to the right side of the screen as possible, because Shovel Knight will then walk over to this door, it will open, and then you'll walk through it. So if you're on the left side of the screen, you just spend a lot of time walking over the whole screen, wasting time. So that's another benefit of getting the quick kill in the right corner. Now Smoggy enters the Tower of Fate second level, called Ascent. The level's very straightforward, just kind of go down and then to the right and then back up through a long auto-scroller. And then you actually fight all of the bosses again in this at the end of this level. Splat and Diesel at roughly the same point. See if Primorix can maintain the Black Knight quick kill here. And looks like he dropped it, but can he recover like last run? The same thing happened to him. And unfortunately he was too far away to get the backup, so now he has to fight this phase of Black Knight. And this phase is incredibly dangerous because he does a lot of damage with all of his attacks. If you let him live long enough, he summons these meteors. And those meteors normally deal 1 whole, so in this case they'll deal 1/2. But he managed to still end the fight really quickly. Diesel and Exploud have started their stun locks. How long does this run take? The world record held by Smoggy is 43:36. So, like a run for me takes anywhere between 44 and like 47 minutes, roughly. So, somewhere between 45 minutes and 50 minutes, if you're really good. All of the runners here have a time at least below 47 minutes. For reference, Primorix's PB is 44:32. He's in 4th place currently. Diesel's personal best is a 46:59. Exploud's personal best is a 46:37. And you don't get to that kind of time without learning a lot about this game. Smoggy almost at the end of the auto-scroller. He's about to enter the boss refights. The only rule involving the boss fights here is that Polar Knight has to be among the first 3, and that's just because of the fact that he can get rid of the floor and summon spikes, which will kill the player instantly. So the developers wanted the player to not suffer a cheap death really late in the boss rush as a result of this mechanic. So he's always guaranteed to be within the first 3. Oh, Exploud! I just noticed somehow fell down just below the top of the screen there, and since he doesn't have the like eagle platform to help him, he is stuck down there at the mercy of the Jawas. Luckily the checkpoint is not too far behind. But now we'll see him, like the other runners, go back up above the level and try and propeller dagger over everything. And the only thing to note in the auto-scroller that they're in right now is that you can jump above the blocks before they spawn on screen. It doesn't really make it any faster, but it makes it a little bit safer, I suppose. So, looks like so far Smoggy's had a clean boss rush. I'm really surprised there. The boss rush room is actually slightly smaller than all the other boss rooms, and Spectre Knight, as you see, actually sits in a different spot on the screen, so the quick kill method is slightly different. As for other differences, the Mole Knight fight is basically reversed, but most of the other fights are pretty much the same. The other difference in this, in all these refights, is obviously that they all have the Conjurer's Coat, so they'll all take extra damage from the bosses. This is most notable against really Plague Knight and Treasure Knight, as they are the ones that can really provide the most randomness in the boss rush. And they can also just kill you incredibly quickly. Plague is just hard to keep up with if you let him get out of control, and Treasure does a ton of damage. And then Smoggy, showing off the low percent quick kill, which also just, of course, works in this run. But it makes the Propeller Knight fight practically free. Diesel taking a bit of damage on Polar Knight. Looks like he should get through just fine. Smoggy getting a clean Treasure Knight fight. Oh, in between bosses, you are guaranteed a food platter, and then every other food platter has magic. So it's very important that they make sure they open every food platter so that they can properly keep their magic up. Ideally, they will have enough magic left over to dagger 4 times at the end of the level, so they want to let at least 16. Smoggy has enough now. Exploud having some trouble with Propeller. Diesel getting trolled by Plague, but he saved some of the health for later. Good choice. I think Plague is probably unanimously the least favorite boss in this section. And he's down for Diesel. Oh, also there's no ceiling in this boss room, so you can't do the same strat against King Knight. Now Smoggy's entered the last level, which has 2 boss fights. In this block room, they always come at you in the same order, so you just have to pick a spot on the screen and then avoid them. You can use any spot on the screen, any one of these platforms. Every runner pretty much uses the second one from the right, just because it's what we're used to seeing, so we already know what to do. Looks like Plague was a little trolled into Primorix, but much nicer than he was to Diesel. He's jumping around like crazy for Exploud. So with the Enchantress fight that Smoggy's coming up to, he's going to want to reflect some fireballs, throw a preemptive gear for later, which will deal 1 whole damage. Throws an early orb. It's interesting he chose to go with that, but I see what he's doing. Actually, never mind. I don't see what he's doing at all. That's a consistent strat. But there are other ones that are slightly faster. But I guess if it works, it works. Am I looking forward to AGDQ? You bet I am. I'm a little nervous, because I obviously have to race Smoggy. Like, I'm just hoping it is not a blowout, but at the very least, I can just hopefully pull off some tricks and explain why they work. But it should be fun. Exploud doing a very slow pogo strat on Tinker Knight. Primorix just starting the Tower of Fate. Time will end for Smoggy when he kills this boss. Luckily he has a timer on his own. So something to note about Enchantress, this isn't really important in any percent, since ideally he'll stay in the air. But Enchantress will only initiate a start of the fight where she slams down on the ground, allowing you to get more hits. She'll start that after you deal 8 damage. So it's very important that in the first time Shield Knight jumps up, you deal at least 8 damage. You did a run and got a 43-28. I do not believe you. No offense, but I do not believe you. Oh no, Diesel died to boss rush, so he has to repeat the whole thing. Oh, that is incredibly unfortunate. There's not really much that's more demoralizing in this run than having to redo boss rush. Smoggy does not have the low percent record. I actually have the low percent world record. I know Smoggy intends to go back and improve every single category, which is also basically my plan for 2017, or at least for any percent and low percent. I admittedly am not very good at 100%, but anyway. Exploud taking a death to the block room. So Primorix now onto the final boss. Diesel trying to make quick work of the bosses once again. Primorix is almost done, and time for Primorix. So Exploud now on his way to the Enchantress fights. We'll see what happens here. My personal best of this run is 44-17, and in my run I did not buy the orb, but I bought all the other items. My personal best with the orb route is a 44-33. So we'll see if I can improve that within the next week. None of the other runners in the Shovel Knight community, including Smoggy, are doing anything or any runs at AGDQ. Unfortunately. As for what other games any of these runners have done, Primorix has done runs of Bastion. Exploud does a lot of Bowser's Inside Story. He's pretty good at Metroid Fusion. He's done a lot of random little indie games that he's worked on. Diesel does Mega Man 2 and Mighty Gunvolt. And I believe he has a 30-minute or a sub-30 Mega Man 2 right now. I forget if that's with or without Zips. And unfortunately he died to Plague Knight again. Oh no. Smoggy is a beast at this game, and he's also very consistent, and he has a lot of time to practice and learn every single strat. My sum of best for this category is actually only about 10 seconds behind his. I just have yet to get a quality run, I guess you should say. But that's not really the point, I guess, right now. Exploud having a little trouble keeping up with Enchantress there. Diesel soldiering on through. And time for Exploud. So now we'll see what Diesel chooses to do. I believe Tolu is racing in this one. Let me see. Maybe not. Anyway. Diesel still just, you know, hammering away at these bosses here. So, in case anyone is wondering what is the purpose of having these Shovel Knight races today, we're actually going to be holding a tournament next month starting on the 20th. So if anyone's interested, I would recommend signing up at the challenge bracket. Maestro227 who has made an excellent beginner's tutorial. So, you know, the tournament is strictly for fun. Nothing really on the line here other than fun. But if you're interested in picking this game up, maybe learning a few strats, I recommend joining. I don't think... I believe Shovel Knight is referred to as a he. I believe, but we don't actually know if Shovel Knight is a human character or not. I suppose that's not really important. And Diesel, please don't die to Propeller Knight. Oh man. And he's done. Alright. We're going to Tower 3. A link for the beginner's guide. One moment, actually. I will get that to you. Thank you, Shane. Oh man. Alright, Diesel's gonna make his way to the Enchantress. And he actually has I think the same quick kill, but he tries to end it differently. As opposed to bouncing off of Enchantress, he tries to finish her with a charge slash and a shovel swing. Yeah. So Diesel actually got a great start to this fight and killed her during the dive. Luckily she flew under him so we could bounce off of her. Oh my goodness. So time's coming up for Diesel. Oh, he fell off the gear. Oh no. The gear just gives you, I believe, a little bit of extra jump height. I'm not sure if we've ever confirmed that, but I think it's true. Oh, for anyone that does sign up for the tournament, if you do need an invite to the Discord server, please reach out to myself, Tolu, and I guess any of the other speed gaming mods. I guess they'll tell me if that's not correct, but feel free to reach out to me on Twitch or Twitter. I'm Munchakoopa's SK on Twitter. You can find it via my Twitch page, so I can get you the hookup for the Discord link for the tournament, as well as feel free to reach out to me for any help with learning the game, as well as any of the other runners. We usually we try to be very helpful and supportive of new runners. Looks Cloud probably practicing some low percent strats here. But I think that will do it for our races tonight. Thank you very much to Feasel for hosting tonight. And thank you to all the Speed Gaming staff for doing all the awesome stuff they do. Give us tons of tournaments and tons of content to watch. I know I've but spent many hours joyfully watching the tournaments of various games the last few months. So, not sure what the procedure is here now, but I believe we'll be signing off soon. Thank you to everybody who came out and watched. Huge shoutouts to the runners. Smoggy, Exploud Your Ear, S Diesel, Primorix, Jade Puppy, and Tolu also participated in the first race. Make sure you give all of them a follow. They're all very good at this game. And we'll see you all in January for the tournament proper, yeah? Let's see. Not sure who else is streaming Shovel Knight. Smoggy might. Let me find out real quick here. Find out who's doing the what. Looks like Tolu went straight into some Plague Knight stuff just to show off. Tolu actually has the world record for every Plague Knight category. So if you're looking for some of that, go follow him. Not sure what people's plans are. Let's see. So far, no one has gotten back to me.